Hello everyone, and welcome back. Still been busy on the guest house here. Had a couple of days where I had other things to do. They came in and did stuff with the wood boiler and hooked up a bunch of it. So that took up a whole day, and today we've just been kind of dodging the rain. And I got a couple more walls built here, and I had Melissa come out and help me lift them up. And yeah, we're getting there. We're over halfway done with the outside walls. You can see here now there'll be a window on each side of the bed, queen bed. And I couldn't get, this is 24 inches. And I was hoping to get like a 20, but unless you're going to, even these, I have to wait 3 weeks, I think, for them to come in. But anyway, the bed will come up like right here. So this works out just fine. We kept these up higher. Same thing with the one in the living room, just so that they all match. In this one here, we were thinking about doing a 4 foot by 4 foot, like the one in the bedroom and like the one that's going to be, I believe, in this side wall of the living room. But to do that, it has to be a slider. And I needed this one to be a double or single hung, because we're not going to put central air in here. We're going to have one of those units like we have in the farmhouse, where you just put that little thingy in the window shuts against it and it blows out. Because really, you don't need the air conditioning up here all that much in the summer. Usually that wind is blowing off the lake and it stays cooler. So we decided to do that and then just keep these all the same height, so at least the front looks kind of uniform. Yesterday the roof trusses were delivered, so there's nothing really stopping us now. Tomorrow sounds like it might be rainy, so I don't know if I'll make it out here or not, but I'll be glad when the outside walls are done. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to start this morning by laying out this back kitchen wall, the one with the sink, window above the sink. And I haven't got to the point yet where I edit the last video where it got so windy, or I don't think that's this video. Anyway, so I'm going to go over the window once again in case I had to cut that out, or like right now the wind picks up a little bit. I don't know if it's blocking out the sound or whatever. It's going to be get windier and windier today, so I'm not going to be able to film everything. But this is for the kitchen window right here, which is going to be 32 inches wide and 38 inches tall. The top of the window, of course, will be the same height as all the other windows in the house, and which we talked about earlier, and I will show again later on when we're doing interior walls. But, so, just to go through the parts of this here, this is 32 inches. This is exact center of my wall from there to there, because I want the sink in the center, of course the window centered above it. So the rough opening on this window is 32, so we have 16 inches from center to here, and that's going to be to our trimmer and then our stud. So then I'm going to go over here again and do the 16 inches, and then I'm going to double check to make sure we hit right on 32, which we do. Yeah, you can easily screw up an inch and then you go to put your windows in and they don't fit, so always double check. Again, I explained earlier, X is for the stud. For me, for a trimmer, it's a C, because that's how my dad taught me, but a lot of people do O's. After you do that, double check it again, because sometimes you can get off your 1.5 inches. So normally when I do this now, if I have a crew that's working behind me, I know what this window is. But the people coming behind me to build this, they don't. So to save yourselves time, so they don't have to measure this and say, oh, okay, I need a 35-inch header, I will always write 35H. Because usually I will make a header list and have somebody build all of the headers, and they're just sitting in a pile. They can just go through the pile and get the one that says 35 written on it, and they know it's for this spot right here. Saves me time from them measuring or anything. It's simple for them, just build the wall. So there's my 35 that I'm talking about for the header. I'll do 35H, and this is a 35, that's the header, Windows 32, they don't need to know that. 35 header, but my opening they are going to need to know, and the opening on this is 38. So then I do 38, open. Everything is simple for them, and it's ready to go. With this wall here, since it basically got built in 2 parts just so a person can lift it, I already have my layout going right here, so I'm just going to hook onto here and do 16 inches. Remember, everything is 16, 32, 48. I did get a question on the last video that I put up last night asking about when I did the floor joists, how I do the 15 1/4. And it was a, how do I explain it? It was a question that it just hasn't clicked in that person's mind yet what I was saying. And you know, he said, do you just do the 15 1/4 until you get to the 8 feet? So I wanted to explain that again in case other people were wondering the same thing. I tend to talk fast, go through stuff, and until it clicks in your head, then it's easy, but before that, you're just scratching your head. So originally, when I laid this out, we started in this corner. And from the outside of our building, I showed how you have to start with 15 1/4. So I go 15 1/4, 31 1/4, 47 1/4, 63 1/4, all the way down. And I'll do that until I run out of tape measure. If I have 100-foot tape, I'm going to be doing that a lot longer than I'm going to be doing it with a 25-foot tape. The only actual joist that gets moved is the first one. That one is set at 15 1/4. And from there, if you wanted to, you can put a nail in here to hook your tape on, hook on this one, and just do 16, 32, 48, 64 the whole way down. But for me, it's just easier, since I'm already hooked on the outside, just stay 3/4 under. You're doing the same thing. And that's where it got complicated for this person, and I understand that. Because if I do 15 1/4, and then I go ahead and do 31 1/4, when I measure this, we're 16 inches. It's just one step I didn't have to do. 15 1/4, put in a nail, and hook on. Some people do it that way though. So anyway, that's what I mean. Just one gets changed, and the reason why you're doing that, if you didn't watch that video, is because when you go to lay your first piece of plywood, which is 8 foot long, which ends right here, if I would have not changed it the 3/4 of an inch, my joist would have been right here. So when you, and X this way. So when you laid this piece of plywood, it would have came up and it wouldn't have hit. It had been on the corner, you know, it had been like, oh crap, what did I do wrong? So by moving it back that 3/4 of an inch, now, or let's do it that way. Yeah, like this here. This is where it would have been. The plywood would hit right here and miss. By doing that 15 1/4 on that first one, everything is back 3/4 of an inch, and my 8 foot hits right on the center where it should be. And from here on out, everything is 16, just like everything is 16 except for that first one. So your 8 foot works. If you pull 16 off of it, that will work. If you cut a 4-footer, that will still work because everything is on a 16. So for this here, like I said, I'm going to hook on this stud. I'm going to do 16. I'm going to double check myself though and go back all the way to another stud that's on layout. There we go, I'm on 96, so I'm where I'm supposed to be right there. For this one, it would have been easy to check because I ran the plywood here to hit this stud, and I can see that it'll hit, you know, 3/4 on where it should. So from this mark, I'm just going to go ahead and mark all my 16s. I'm just going to put a mark there though, nothing more, no X's or anything. Now that I got my marks, I can come in. These are just common studs. Mark them as an X. I'm not going to put anything on the end. I don't have anything on the end here. I don't have any need for it. We're just continuing a wall. Pretend it was one wall, but we're doing it in two. When I get over here to the window again, these are my little cripples that are going to be underneath the windowsill. So this is an 8 foot wall, so our header is up tight to the top plates. If this was a 9 foot wall, you would also have kickers or cripples, whatever you want to call them, above the header to the top plate. You know, because just because your wall is taller doesn't mean your windows get set taller, unless you're going with some, you know, taller windows. But normally they just stay in the same place. So for me, this is just a straight line. But remember, your window has to have, your windowsills going across, you have to have bearing underneath each end of your windowsill also. So we're going to put one here, we're going to put one there. Once we're past the window, now we're back into just common stud. So I'm going to mark these. And right here now, we have one that's very close to the end. And I have adjusted this some because this cantilever's out. I can show that a little bit better right here. Here's our truss coming down. And the walls, of course, are right on the edge. But this one here is going to have a header because this part of the deck down here is the part that we cantilevered out farther. So these walls are 8 foot 1 1/8, which is where the top of this header will be. But when I get out here, the whatever it was, 14, however many inches it is, this wall can't because my truss is going to come down farther. So what I'm going to do, what we'll do is we'll come in afterwards and we'll build this wall, but it will be shorter. You won't see it inside because here you'll soffit this across. Kitchen cabinets will go here. But on the outside, this wall has to be shorter. Otherwise, if I did an 8 foot wall, here we are sticking above the roof, which we can't do. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better right there. So down here, of course, we're coming with our common studs, and then there's one right here. But it's very, very close to this one. There would be like a 1/4 inch gap in between them. I'm not going to do that because then you have to try to remember and make sure you insulate that good. I'm just going to take and move that to 1/4 inch and just do double stud on the end. If this was somewhere that wasn't critical, like there's going to be a header going right here, I would just eliminate this stud if it's really close. But we're going to leave it in so I have backing for everything. But I'm just going to shove it over. And I probably should not have even explained that because that's going to be like the deer in the headlights look. But anyway, I don't want that little space and have to remember to insulate it, so I'm going to shove that stud over just a little bit. Well, now we're putting the wall together, and a little trick to know is, like, when I do this window, I'm going to put 2 nails top, 2 nails in the bottom, but I'm also going to want to put nails here and here if possible. If I have this stud already nailed, you know, I can get at an angle, but sometimes you get them that are real close. Just don't nail this one yet so you can get in there. Then you can come in and slide your stud in and nail it. It just saves you time. Well, now we come back to the window, and I have written down that it's a 38-inch opening, so I want to push against my header, come down 38, mark that, and then my sill, which is the bottom of the window where the window sits on, is 1.5 inches, so I need to measure that 1.5 inches. And then I can measure here, and it'll tell me what my cripples are, which in this case is 42.25. And my quickest way to mark this is to put it down here. Done. No coming down here and measuring and then have to go on here and pull. This is done. Just switch it to right here. And now I'll go cut my cripples, which I need 4 of them, at that 42.25. With these here, you don't have to bother crowning them. They're too short for it to make any difference. You do want to put your side ones in first, because once again, if I have this one here, you're going to be more fighting it with the gun. So if you can remember, just slap these in first. And there we have our kitchen sink window. It's all roughed in. Remember to always make sure that you are framing the rough opening, not the window size. If you're getting them from the big box stores, Menards, Home Depot, what you see online or when you're looking at, they give you the rough opening. 48 by 48 is actually going to be a 47.5 by 47.5 window, but it'll fit in the opening. when you're building the big custom homes and you're getting custom made windows, it's different. You have to get the sheet from the lumber yard. It'll show the window size and the rough opening size, or they have to create you a rough opening list. Things can get complicated. I've done it before where they screwed that up and they gave me all of the openings for the windows were the size of the windows. Well, it's a big change order and you get paid for it, but it's a lot of work changing these out. With this wall here, since we did it in 2 pieces, once again I have to go ahead and run my top plate over past the end of the wall. So when I lift it up, it will tie into that wall. Another thing to remember when you're putting on your top plates, make sure you get a straight one, because after all the walls are up, you're going to have to go in and straighten all the walls before you can set the trusses, because once again, you're like back to the beginning. If this is straight, everything will be straight. And if you've got a crooked top plate, you're fighting it. It's just easier to use the crooked ones for stuff like cripples and sills and keep the straight ones for top plates and wall plates. But top plate is really important. I have a situation here where I move this stud over because there's going to be a header here, and I want this for a backer on the side to nail into. But when I'm going to do my plywood, this is where my plywood is going to end. All I need is backing. I don't need bearing here. This is a good place to use up these little scraps and nail them in, because you know they're going to just end up getting burned or thrown in the dumpster. So this is a good place to use them up. When you're cutting your window opening out, make sure you stay back a little bit. Like this is about an 1/8 inch, this down here is about 1/4. Because otherwise when you come in to put your window, it's particularly important on the bottom because your window sits tight down to the sill here. So if your sheathing is above, like this here, the window is out of level and you have to lift up this side. Not so critical, as long as it fits in the hole and you're just doing one window. But if you have 2 windows that are like, say you put 2 windows and there's 3 inches between them, you have to make sure they're all lifted up, because then when it comes time to trim later, one piece of trim will be higher than the other. Or if you're wrapping the boards with wood on the outside, they're not going to be even. Anyway, it's just much easier. Don't bother trying to get it perfect. Get it back a little bit. Your flange is going to cover it anyway. Before you tip your wall up, come over here, and since this top plate is going to run over that wall plate, tip that up, you know, just hit it up a little bit so you can get over the top without banging into it. I might have covered some of this already before, but that first part of that video was so windy that day, and I know this one is windy too, so it's just trying to figure out which clips I can use, so I apologize if you're getting it twice. stapling off this wall. Then Melissa called because she was coming home from work, so I stopped and talked to her. Came back, was thinking about it the whole entire time, how this piece overlaps this piece. Do not nail this. Even come up, finished nailing that one, left that one, came back, wasn't thinking, and nailed this stud. Tried to just lift up on the plywood, so this came up, but it would just start cracking the plywood. There's no way it would come up. So now I had to take my saw, I buzzed it right down where the two plates meet, and then once the two walls are up, I'll have to put a flat piece of backer in here that goes behind this one, and then go out and staple it. My mistake. Melissa came out and helped me lift up these two walls, and then we were looking at it, and we don't like this window right here. It's too high up in the air. Even though I'm thinking that a couch will probably go against there, it still looks pretty stupid. And since we already ordered all the windows and doors, so this one is coming anyway, I'm going to put the window when it comes right in that opening. The opening needs to be 2 inches bigger to the left, about, I don't know, a foot down, and it'll fit right in there. But I'm going to cut this one to the correct opening right now because I hate coming back and changing things, so get it done right now at the end of the day. What I did is I measured down it's going to be a 48 by 48, so I measured down 49.5 because this sill will have to go on top, which will get me back up to 48. Marked it on both sides, ran my level and made a mark, but when you're ever doing this, a lot of people will go like this with their speed square. But you can't get as accurate as if you do it this way, because then your metal is tight and you're just coming straight out. So that's kind of a good little tip. There we go, all fixed up and ready. The only real accident I've had at work, other than getting cut with bands from the lumber piles and stuff, I've got a few scars from those. I was young. I mean, I had my driver's license. Anyway, we were building a house, and everybody left work and I had to stay and finish stapling off the garage like this. And it was snowing like crazy. Everybody else, I don't know, they left me there because I was the youngest guy, you know. And everybody wanted to get home early because of the snow. It was going to be a bad storm. Anyway, I am really going, like this one here I have to go slow with because the compressor can't keep up. At work, you know, we use the gas-powered one, so you can run 3 guns and it's going to keep up with you. Anyway, I am trying to get out of there, so I'm up on the ladder and I was on the front corner of a garage, just like this, but it was a garage. I was on this corner, nailing one of these pieces like this in, and I'm going down, and I'm going to step down, and I didn't take my finger off the trigger because you don't, you know, you just bam, 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 came down, chunk, got myself in the knee, went through the kneecap into the ball of my knee. I couldn't move it. The pain was so excruciating. So, and luckily I was like on the last step down, and it did it. I'm laying on the ground, and I couldn't move it. Like if you would just try to move it just the tiniest bit, the pain would just be horrible, you know, because it's right through the kneecap, and it was so far deep in there were 1 3/4 staples that my pants were pushed in, and it indented my jeans like in, you know, like into the skin. So it was just tight. And I managed to get on the ground, and luckily a few houses over, because this was a development where lots of houses were being built, there was a Mexican crew that was trying to get shingles on a roof before the snow came. So, you know, and those guys are fast. One of them finally saw me and came over, and then we had the whole language barrier thing because my cell phone was in my truck. And finally he got it, and he got my cell phone, and I called my dad, who had left with all the other guys, and he came back, and then we're going to try to get me in his truck. They couldn't get me in his truck because my leg couldn't move. So they had to call an ambulance. The ambulance comes and gets me, brings me to the hospital. They give me morphine. I feel great. Nurses look awesome, you know, and cut my pants off here. And then there was a little piece of jean there that was still stuck. And I remember asking him, "What are you going to do? Pull it out with a vice grip?" And he said, "Basically." And that's what they did. They got underneath there and pried it up a little bit after shooting me full of Novocaine. And then he took it was more like a needle nose plier, and they yanked that whole thing out of there and took x-rays. Everything was fine. You could just see the 2 holes where they went in and into the bone. But that's probably the worst accident that I've had. I've been lucky. I saw guys that worked for me that were shooting like a truss together. I had one guy, and he shot his thumb through the thumb into the joist. So he's hanging up there with the ladder, standing on the ladder. That was, yeah, we had to bring him to the hospital too because it went through the bone and into it. We had to take a hammer. It didn't go in super far into the wood and pry his thumb out, and then hauled him in. And yeah, I've been lucky. That was the only one I've gotten. I think about it all the time when I'm coming down a ladder using one of these things. Get your finger off the trigger. Well, it's almost 7:30. I've had enough of this day. I was hoping to get that header put in on that back corner, but that can wait until tomorrow. Well, it's been 2 days since I filmed anything out here on the guest house. We were waiting to figure out the layout in here. We had the general idea, but not everything. And I did get some stuff done. I got the beam put in up there, got some more of the sheathing done on the corners. I still have another corner back there to do. And I have that piece, but until we figured out the bathroom, I didn't know where that little window was going to go. And Melissa was just out here, and we went through everything, and this is how it's going to be. Well, as far as the bedroom goes, everything stayed the same. You know, the bed's going to go right here. The bed posts come almost right up to the window. To walk into the bedroom, we walk in right here, 2/6 door. The door opens this way. Right here we have the closet. We have room here for a dresser. And we have roughly 4 feet of like walking space between all here. And then you've got a little more than 2 feet on each side of the bed to walk. So when we come into the bathroom, which was, you know, the whole thing that we were trying to figure out, Bathroom door is right here, so the door will open up against the back side of this closet wall. And right here it gives us 54 inches in the rough to put a vanity, and we're going to get like a freestanding 48-inch one. Can't find any of those nice ones like we found down in Louisiana, but I don't want a built-in that goes wall to wall. I want a freestanding one that'll sit here. Those are at the most 23 inches deep. We've got about 20, well, at least that to the trim. To the actual door, we're running around 28 inches, so plenty of room for that. Then we first, and a lot of people have said that too, what about putting a shower in here? And then we kind of thought about that. But then now we went through it and we're going to put a tub in here, the exact same tub that we put in Louisiana with that curved front on it. Then I can tile the walls just where the tub is. I want this to just be vinyl. I'm not going to go through tiling all of this here. But anyway, so now we have, the tub is going to sit right here. We've got 36 inches in the rough of a walkway, which is plenty. I mean, it's only a walkway, for like right here, because then it's kind of open where the tub is, but still a walkway. And then we'll put the stool back here. The toilet, I keep calling it a stool, and Melissa's like, don't call it a stool, but that's all we ever call it when we're building houses. The stool goes there. Toilet will go right there, and then we're going to do a linen closet right here. So a little clothes hamper can go in there maybe, and some shelves for towels and everything. The other option is when we put this in, if it had a small enough mirror, you could just have a little door that opens and you just dump your clothes into the laundry room, which is in the utility room. But for right now, I'm just going to figure on that. Linen closet on this side, face frame, and then the 48-inch bifold for this room right here. And we'll go through and talk about some of this stuff, laying this out and what needs to happen tomorrow when I'm building this. It's supposed to get up close to 90 degrees tomorrow. We are running out of those kind of days, so it's going to be like an oven in here. So I'd like to get this stuff framed up in the morning if I can. And then once this is up, the walls get straightened, I can put the trusses up. I still need to put the two headers out the front for the porch, because that'll be, there'll be 3 trusses out there. So that's the hardest thing left to do, before the roof goes on. I wanted to talk a little bit about this because I never covered it when we were building the walls. I mean, I talked about kind of how I do the headers so that the guys can just grab them off the pile and go, but we didn't actually talk about the headers much. I did mention that, this is a 4-foot opening, so I can get by with just a 2-member, so it's 2 2x10s nailed together every 16 inches. And then we've got the 2x6 on the bottom, and this is standard where the, window height would be in a house, like we talked about with 8-foot high walls. But this is 2-member. I'm okay with just 1 trimmer. If I go wider than this and say I had to triple this up, I would need to have 2 of these right here. So, everything moves this way, but you would need to have 2 bearing point, or 2 trimmers for your bearing point on each side. If this is a microlam beam, which a lot of times if you get past like 5 feet, we'll switch it out to microlams, and they'll come in 11 7/8, 9.5 is roughly what they come with too, as far as 2x10 sizing goes. But with a microlam, it's, and unless you get an engineer involved, it's always 1 and 1. And you never have usually just 1 microlam. So if we have 2 microlams to do the beam, and microlams are, they're like glued plywood beam together, but they're 1.75 inches wide. They're not a paralam. That's different, where they'll glue a 3.5 or 5.5 inches like studs on top of each other. We're just talking microlam here. And with those, so if you have a 2-member, you need 2. If it's a 3-member, you need to have 3 of these. That's what code will say. And you never really have a 4-member because that gets wider than the wall. 3 of them is 5.5 inches or 5.25, but it's real close. So just keep that in mind that, just because you put in a 6-foot header doesn't mean you're going to get by with just 1 trimmer if you're going to pass your inspection. You definitely need more. Sometimes this might end up being a 2x12 because you have a bearing point on top, so the plan is calling for a thicker header. But all windows, you know, unless, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, but all windows are the same height. So we put this 2x6 underneath. With the 2x12 then, the 2x12 was 11 1/4. Here you're at about 11 inches, 10 7/8. So you would just put the 2x12 in there. I mean, that's close enough. You can up and down the windows when you're setting them if you happen to have a 2x12 here and a 2x10 here. But we would take this out, put the beam in, which would come down to here, and then rip a piece of this to go on the face of the beam. The mainly why this is here is so you have something to nail your sheetrock to, and then when you put your window trim on, you know, you need something to nail your window trim. Otherwise, you know, you just have floating sheetrock right here, and you know, that's not going to work. I wanted to show you this too because you could fail an inspection because of this. When you staple, you know, everything, the staples from the sheathing go into the 2x6s, sills, and everything like that. See how this one missed halfway? This one did also. You need to cut these off, break them off. It never used to be that way, and you can use a little side cutter and they snap off pretty easy. But the reason why is when it's cold outside, the cold follows this in, and then these get frost on them. And you'll see it, like if you have the house up and you don't have it insulated yet, these will just turn white with frost. And they say that over time, that then could cause, you know, because that has to melt eventually, could cause mold or even start rotting this. I mean, I do think that that's pushing it, I really do. But if you have a really dicky inspector, they'll come through, and you, for sure, you have. We always go through the house, make sure every one of these that misses is cut off, because years ago it was never like that, but now it is, and you know, you just might as well get it done. Or if they find one, they're going to search the whole entire house looking for more. Okay, everyone. Well, thanks a lot for watching. I think I'm going to end this one right now. We'll come back tomorrow and start the next one, doing the interior walls, getting everything braced, and run that one all the way up till it's time to put up the trusses. I will see you guys on the next video.